Now it's time for a little fantasy football week 16. And Dave, I hope you're feeling a little bit better, my man. I know you're under the
Um,
weather last week.
yeah, sorry about that, guys. But yeah, I'm feeling much better actually. A little down after that Packers another second loss in the row though. That kind of hurt me. I was watching that game while laying in bed, and it was no fun to watch that game last week or this week.
Yeah, I mean, the Packers have been terrible. The Bears are like right on the verge of playoffs and blow the freaking 10-point lead at the end. That was painful. The Bears, the Packers, and the Vikings all just were
Choked
bad.
away.
Well, the Packers didn't really choke it away. They were just getting beat. But the
Oh yeah,
Vikings and the Bears, they choked away both their games. Terrible. And it was just the truth is that that's just who they are. It's like bad teams find ways to lose. It's just teams that are just not playoff teams. And I tweeted out today. The truth is there's only one team that is legit, and that's San Fran in the NFC, and there's four in the AFC. And it's really you got to throw Kansas City in there. You got to throw Baltimore in there.
oh Baltimore definitely.
Probably Miami, yet they still haven't beaten a good team, and Buffalo. Those are the only teams that you can take seriously, right?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Even Miami, like you said, I'm kind of iffy on them still. Like they proved they can win without Tyreek Hill, but they beat the Jets though, so that's not really proving that much actually to me.
Yeah, exactly. That's the Jets, big deal, right? Um,
Exactly.
and after the Jets, they got their Cowboys this week, so and hopefully the Cowboys are healthy now too, because the Cowboys themselves have been a little banged up, a little injured. I guess it was really the flu or something is what they had, and it was kind of last minute of announcement. Couldn't get out of my teaser legs or anything, so I just sucked that one up. But yeah, if you had Dak and some of those guys, you probably had a bad week.
Yeah, and it's playoffs too, so it hurts a lot of people. It sucks when the guys that are performing and get you here don't perform in the playoffs. So it kind of kills you.
Yeah, it certainly does, man. Well, let's get into it. Bye weeks, there's really no more. We're done with bye, so we'll go into key injuries. And hopefully you made it to the next round of your playoffs. The way I do fantasy in my leagues is if you don't make the playoffs, there's a bracket to pick first through sixth. That's the way it should be. You make people play for something all the way to the end, so they're not dropping good players or no shenanigans is happening. And they kind of stay involved. So I think that's important to have a set up a league, have a consolation bracket set up for draft picks. Whoever wins that gets the first pick of the draft. Yeah, key injuries. Marquise Brown injured his heel. He possibly can come back this week, though. But the big injury is Keaton Mitchell from the Ravens. He's been really ripping it up the last month or so or longer. And now he's out for the season. So tough on him. And he probably won't even be back by the beginning of next season. So that's how serious those ACR tears are. Jamar Chase injured his shoulder. It looks like something separated. He had an MRI, and it looks like he's missing next week. So that's big news. We just heard that today. So Jamar Chase will be out next week, and we'll see how long that lasts. Jaden Reed from the Packers injured his toe and had to leave the game. So we'll see how Jaden Reed's affected after this, Dave. Zach Wilson got concussed. I mean, hopefully you're not starting Zach Wilson. You probably aren't listening to this episode and care. You probably have no care about fantasy football if you start Zach Wilson. So there you go with that. And then quarterback Trevor Lawrence got concussed as well, and that awful Sunday night game. And Zach Moss injured his shoulder, but they think he can maybe go next week. But we will have to see. Dave, who do you have?
You covered all the key injuries that I had as well. There's a couple defensive guys that were out there, but other than that, you covered everyone that I had. Jimmy Ward ruled out with a concussion, safety for the Texans. Marcus Williams, safety for the Baltimore Ravens. He was out with a groin injury. But other than that, you got all the key injuries. We can a couple of guards were injured too, which are key. Actually, a very key injury though was Zach Martin for the Cowboys. So we'll see how that affects him next week against the Dolphins, because once he went out, the running game kind of suffered, and they couldn't pass protect as well either. So that's a key part of their line. So we'll see how that affects him next week if he doesn't play.
Two teams that can't beat good teams, well, something's got to give next week. It's Emir saying this Dolphins versus Cowboys game. Maybe bet the under.
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's get into the waiver wire then, Dave. Who do you have that we're picking up?
All right, great. Well, Trey Sermon for the Colts actually had a good game after Zach Moss went out. So he's the guy you definitely want to take a look at if Zach Moss is out again. Baker Mayfield, one of his best games of the year against my poor Packers, poorish defense. Definitely on the fire Joe Barry team now, or train now. Definitely don't mind if they fire the D coordinator now, but I was sticking up for him before when they were winning and the 3-game stretch where they were winning against good teams, but defense is just putrid. I have to agree now with everyone else that's been on the Barry boat. Definitely he needs to be canned, but Baker Mayfield had a perfect quarterback rating, threw for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. So
He torched the Packers, man.
he did,
That
man.
secondary looked terrible last week or yesterday, actually.
Oh yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was tough to watch. And then we were missing tackles. We couldn't even tackle anyone on a little screen, wide receiver screen. It was horrible. Another guy, Joe Flacco. You wouldn't think this, but Joe Flacco's actually been playing very well as well. He had 44 pass attempts, 374 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 3 interceptions, but in all 3 of his starts this year, he's reached 300 passing yards, which is pretty rare. I think Zach Wilson has 1 300-yard passing game all year, and Flacco's already got 3 in all the games he started. So that's pretty awesome, actually, for Flacco. Good for him. I'm cheering for the guy and for the Browns. So Gardner Minshew, he's actually playing at Atlanta this week, and he's been playing well.
They're breaking up a little bit.
Gardner Minshew had 3 touchdowns this past week as well, and he had a great game this week as well. So he's another guy you can take a look at. Nick Mullins against Detroit is a good, favorable matchup, and Nick Mullins actually played pretty well. Even though the Vikings did lose, he played pretty well. So that's another guy you want to keep an eye on if you do need a quarterback. Hopefully not having to start any of these guys for the playoffs, but if you do have some key injuries or something else happened, definitely good guys to pick up. Ty Chandler, he's actually a guy that could really help you in the playoffs. He had over 100 yards this past week, 23 carries, 132 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Also had 3 catches for 25 yards as well. So he could actually be a league winner if he's still out there. You definitely scoop him up. Jerick McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Actually, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a very good game, actually. 4 receptions, 64 yards, and a touchdown. And McKinnon had 3 of his
Well, he
targets.
should be owned by now. Both of those should have been owned from last week's injuries. So
yeah, definitely they should. Zamir White, he wasn't picked up last week, another guy. He actually played very well and filled in for Jacobs very well with that 60-point game that
I
they
wonder
had.
if Jacobs is back this week. Yeah, though I think
he's borderline. Yeah, so I would pick him up as a handcuff if anything, or if you pick him up in case Jacobs is out, but you could throw him on your bench. But other than that, I don't know if he'll be starting him if Jacobs is back. He's definitely not starting him. So no, I definitely agree. Devontae Wicks for the Packers. With Watson out, he's actually been playing very well. A lot of people will say they remind him of Devontae Adams, which is very high praise.
You're actually right.
What's that?
We're having some internet issues here between you and me, but you covered a good amount of them until you started breaking up. I'm going to go into mine, and hopefully this internet's going to clear up a little bit. I got Justice Hill. He's going to be the big beast for the injury to Keaton Mitchell, and I think he's the guy that you're going to be really looking at here this week. He'll share with Gus Edwards. CJ Beathard might be a streamer for the Trevor Lawrence injury, but we'll see what happens with that. Lawrence is, obviously possibly still going to play, but if you're checked for a concussion, you never know. Tyler Boyd, now that Chase is going to be out, he could be huge. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot too. So I like Tyler Boyd this week. Trey Tucker, he exploded this week for the Raiders. Now, I don't expect the Raiders to do what they did against the Chargers often, Dave. I think this might have been more of an apparition, but just if you're desperate, Trey Tucker's out there. And Demarcus Robinson too. He's kind of just getting the big plays for the Rams. So I kind of like Demarcus Robinson a little bit in this situation as well. So you got to give him some cred. And Amari Demercado for the Cardinals. It's funny, Dave, the Niners defense gave up a lot of rushing yards to Connor and Demercado last week. It was kind of weird to see. I'm wondering if it was something that's sustainable or not. Well, actually, the Niners were without their 2 big tackles. They had some injuries on the inside. So you wonder what's going to happen. Probably something to monitor this week if you want to start the Niners D, Dave.
Yeah, definitely. And I like Devontae Wicks, too, for the Packers. He actually has been playing very well. He had 6 catches for 97 yards this past week, and he should continue to see a lot of targets come his way with Watson out, and especially with Jaden Reed out as well. And Noah Brown had a big game this past week as well with Collins on the shelf, too. and with Tank Dell out. And then Josh Downs, there's an injury we forgot to talk about. Michael Pittman left with a concussion and did not return. He might be out possibly this week. So Josh Downs is actually a guy you might want to take a look at picking up as well.
Heck yeah. And Seattle just scored to go ahead. It's Jackson Smith and Jigba. And guess what? DF just went over his yardage, buddy, this drive. Ooh, I needed that. He had like 8 yards in the first half. So that was huge, man. I'm happy about that. Big time. Wow, what a crazy game this is. Now there's about a minute left. Or less even for the Eagles to get down there and try to get a field goal to tie this thing. So that's pretty amazing.
28 seconds left.
Yep, 28 seconds. Jeez, way less than a minute. That's awesome. Oh man,
it's be a huge upset for the Seahawks.
Yes, huge upset on the way. Great. Let's get into non-starters trending up for Week 16. I have Khalil Herbert versus Arizona's bad run D. I think he's gonna have a monster game for the Bears, kind of the get right game for the Bears. I see that coming up this week. Chuba Hubbard versus the Packers, a big week as well. Chuba is not always started by everybody, so Chuba should run all over the pack. Quarterback Baker Mayfield against Jacksonville's D. I like that matchup too. I think Mayfield keeps slinging it, dude. He's been looking great so far. Wide receiver James Godwin. You can pair him up with Mayfield too, and obviously you're starting Evans anyway. But yeah, James Godwin against Jacksonville's D. Tyler Conklin, I don't know who's throwing for the Jets this week, but man, they have a really good matchup against the Washington football team, or the Commanders, I should say. So, man, I don't know a quarterback, but I think the tight end should be a big target for the guy that's going to be in there. Gabe Davis.
They're saying Trevor Siemian, but who knows if Zach Wilson plays or not? Concussion supposedly, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's Tyler Conklin. You're not going to start him over like Likely or something. Likely has been just an absolute beast. And I started Likely in your league. That's why I had over 200 points. Part of the reason this week. It was a great week for me there. Gabe Davis from the Chargers is one to pick up too. I think he's versus the Chargers, I should say, for the Bills. The Bills are just pounding teams right now. And wide receiver Parker Washington versus the Buccaneers, I think, is good on the other side of the thing. Parker Washington should be able to get some big yards for the Jaguars because they're so hurt. And Zay Jones, too. I'll say Zay Jones and Parker Washington for Jacksonville. Dave, who are your non-stars trading up for a week?
I like Josh Palmer actually this week. He actually helped me win one of my leagues this week. I started him. He put up 20 points for me this past week, 100 yards and a touchdown. So I like him this week, even against the Bills' good defense. I still like him. He's going to be the main guy if Keenan Allen is out again. I do like the Gabe Davis pick, too, that you said. I like him as a sleeper this week. Chargers are just horrible on defense, kind of like the Packers right now. So I definitely like that matchup. I like Devontae Wicks this week and Romeo Doubs this week against the Panthers. I think the Packers hopefully bounce back and get a win this next week. And I like Jordan Love this week, too, against the Packers, against the Panthers for the Packers. I do like that matchup as well. I like the Commanders and the Jets. Neither one of them really have a good defense right now. The Jets have been struggling actually on defense, even though they're supposed to have a good defense coming into the year. They have not looked well. So I do like Sam Howell this week, and I do like you said, that Conklin pick. I do like that pick as well. And I think Breece Hall actually has a big week this week too against the Commanders after they trade away a lot of their D linemen. I do like you said, I like Mayfield this week and Godwin. I like those two picks. I do like Justin Fields this week.
I think you should Baker Mayfield there. You're breaking up again.
Okay, I do like Baker Mayfield this week, and I do like the Chris Godwin pick as well. I like both of them as well, like you were saying. I do agree with you on both of those. I do like Justin Fields this week against the Cardinals defense. I don't think the Cardinals defense is that good. I think Justin Fields could have a big week this week, along with Cole Kmet, who you're starting to, but I do like both of those guys. Those guys definitely both trending up. Jalen Waddle, he had a huge game this past week. If Tyreek Hill is out again, I could see him having a big week again. And Raheem Mostert, too. He could have a big week this week against the poor Cowboys run D. Their run D was just horrendous last week against the Bills. So definitely he is trending up as well. And the Chiefs this week, I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire and McKinnon both this week against that poor Raiders D. I think they come back down to earth and they're not scoring as many points this week. And I like Swift and Gainwell this week, too, against the Giants as well.
Yes, yeah, I definitely think Swift and Game are going to have a payback game if the Eagles lose this. It looks like there's an interception here. We'll see about the review if his feet was in, but this is pretty nasty going on. Yeah, I agree with those. I think that you hit them, but just be careful. This is the playoffs here in most cases. You gotta win this game and don't make any mistakes. If we're free for questions too. Just tweet us at the odds breakers and we'll definitely answer those. So let's get into our bust, Dave. Who do you have?
All right. Some Saints have a great run defense. So Kyron Williams, I'm downgrading him this week, even though he's been a stud this year. The Saints have a tough run D, so I'm downgrading him
I
potentially
like
this
that.
week. And then I don't like Mixon this week against the Steelers. He's been struggling this year, and the Steelers have a tough run D too as well. I like that. Don't like that matchup for Mixon. I do not like Texans this week. I don't think Case Keenum has as good of a week this week against that tough Cleveland D. Cleveland D is going to be all over him this week. I don't like that matchup for them. Another one I don't like is going to be the Cardinals. Bears have been on point on defense this past week. I even picked them up in one of my leagues this week, and they scored a touchdown for me. So I don't like Kyler Murray against the tough Bears D. I hate to say it, but yeah, Bears have been playing great defense lately.
Yeah.
So Kyler Murray, I'm downgrading him this week. I don't like Kyler Murray this week against that Bears D. I don't like the Dolphins against the Cowboys D, and their pass D is still good. Their run D is not good, but I think Tua struggles a little bit against that tough pass rush for the Cowboys. I don't like that matchup. And the Ravens, I'm downgrading them against the 49ers. 49ers, I think, are the team to beat this year right now. They're just rolling right now. I'm downgrading Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards against that tough 49ers D as well.
Yeah, totally agree with those. Anybody against the Browns, I mean, they were so vicious. Devin Singletary, Damian Pierce, those guys are tough. And I don't know if CJ Stroud's playing, but I wouldn't play him if I could help it. That's a tough matchup. Terry McLaurin versus the Jets is a little suspect too. He had his big game this week. I think he's going to falter. Jordan Love versus the Panthers, even, believe it or not. The Panthers, actually, the only thing they do good is against the pass, and I worry about Love a little bit there. Plus, there's so many banged up receivers with the Packers. Josh Jacobs versus the Chiefs is bad. So if it's Zamir White or Josh Jacobs, I don't like either. Aiden O'Connell versus the Chiefs, I don't like. Chiefs are this is their time to catch heat usually. Gus Edwards versus the Niners, like you said, the Niners have a great D. David Montgomery versus the Vikings. I don't like that for the Lions there in Minnesota. Versus the Browns could be a bust. So Devin Singletary, or actually I mentioned that. Sorry, Kyron Williams is what the one you mentioned I like, but definitely anybody against the Browns, as I said before. Javonte Williams versus the Patriots is a little suspect. Patriots actually have the second and third best run D. So they're just playing all these low scoring games. So careful with that. And James Conner, of course, versus the Bears. Very rough, Dave. Good stuff, man. Let's get into our nasty sleeper, bud. And I'm going to go with Ezekiel Elliott, the running back for the Patriots, believe it or not. And I think Stevenson will still be on the shelf. And Denver's defense is just so bad, Dave. I love Zeke to run all over the place. And you saw Denver's defense give up a ton of rushing yards just this last week, didn't you, against the Lions?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And one of the other guys I want to add in there, too, I'm downgrading Saquon Barkley, too, against the Eagles. The Eagles actually have a very good run D, so I don't like them or Tommy DeVito against the tough Eagles run D. The pass D is not as good, but their run D is legit, so I definitely want to downgrade him. And then my D-Dynasty sleeper of the week, last one of the year for me, is going to be Gabe Davis. We both talked about him against that poor Chargers defense. They just can't guard anybody, and their secondary is just atrocious. I'm going with Gabe Davis as my D-Dynasty sleeper of the week this week.
Definitely Gabe Davis for sure, man. It's a good call. I think that it's going to be a crazy weekend. What weather? I'd be watching for weather games. So if it's going to be downpouring, check the weather and kind of think that the running game's better than the passing game. If it's raining, you can still pass the ball, but if it's windy, definitely the running game is what you want to target in those situations, unless you're playing like Cleveland's defense or something like that. Well, Dave, I'm not sure if you're going to be back next week because next Monday is Christmas, so I plan on just doing a quick show on Christmas night or maybe the next morning and get the pod a little late. But man, thank you for coming on this year again. You always rock it, and your 14 fantasy leagues. Glad you made the playoffs in 8 of them, man. But we really appreciate you here, buddy.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I always love doing this. I look forward to next year already.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
No problem at any time. So thank you guys for always listening to this show as well. Sorry for the internet connection. Sometimes that happens, but we'll get through that. And if you have any questions for us, feel free to tweet us at the Odds Breakers. Have a great rest of your week and go get some winners.